Alright guys, that's Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Quite the day one here at CDL Major for a DreamHack Dallas. Some remarkable upsets on the day, some surprise teams going out top 12, and one team making a serious run already potentially through the upper bracket. Some teams looked very impressive today. OpTic Texas were one of those teams. The Mercury's Bowl went in favour of the Green Wall, their best placing of the year so far already confirmed, as is effectively World Championship qualification. What does that mean for the rest of the tournament though? How far can they go in this situation? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Thanks for all the love, by the way. I was on the desk today for quite some time. The longest I've ever been on the desk, actually. They wanted me on for the pre-show, which is like half an hour. And, well, anyway, I know that a lot of you guys enjoyed it and gave some kind words, which I do really appreciate. Tried my best anyway to make things as entertaining as possible. But the big story of the day, apart from the other big stories of the day, is iLLeY officially announcing his retirement from competitive Call of Duty. This came as, well, not a massive surprise. I think we've seen it coming over the last few weeks. It's been pretty clear that iLLeY is likely not going to return. He's not played in recent times. He's not, of course, playing here in Dallas. And as he says, the post is long overdue, but I appreciate everyone who supported me throughout my career. With that being said, I've officially retired from competitive cards. Wanted to say I'm thankful for everyone I've met during the journey and the experiences that came with it. From winning chips my first year, to winning a chip, or winning champs my first year, to winning a chip for my dream org. Not enough could be said for how grateful I am for everything. With that being said, it's not the end. Start of a new beginning. So, and crazy career for iLLeY, really. I mean, like, such an infamous career in many respects. Like, a player who we expected when he first came in to do unbelievable things. And to be fair, he did. His first year, he won champs, you know, went on to win a handful of chips and become a very, you know, impressive and famous player in many respects. But his career was marred by various controversies. Of course, the Vanguard season with OpTic was the especially notable one, with the thumb injury and then all the things that were happening behind the scenes, and then the stuff that happened at the start of the last couple of seasons has continued to be pretty remarkable. Only played a couple of full seasons in COD. You know, MW19 and Cold War, both of those years were strange, you know, dealing with online stuff and all this. And iLLeY, when he came in, was expected to be just such a force because he was put in the same category as Simp. But at the end of the day, his career is still very impressive. You know, champs winner, multiple event victories. But, you know, not what many of us thought would have been possible when he started his career. But, yeah, that's just the career of iLLeY, really. Maybe we'll find more about it someday. Wishing him the best anyway for the future. Maybe he'll come back. He'll do something in the COD space, maybe not. But, yeah, it's been a pleasure watching him compete over the last few years and talking about all the storylines, really, that have accompanied his career, because it's certainly been one with its moments, right, iLLeY's career. But we have some matches to talk about, and we are going to begin with LA Thieves absolutely demolishing the Vancouver Surge. This was the first series of the day. You know, I was on the desk before the series. I think, okay, yeah, Thieves are probably going to win, but I didn't expect them to win quite like this. 0-4 just got absolutely cooked. He had a .46 over the series. Again, unfortunately, his name, I mean, they've been back-to-back 4-0 in grand finals. Come in here, drop a .4 in the game. And this, to be honest, it was all worth it, really, because 0-4 then comes out and says, well, I guess we lost to Thieves. It is what it is. At least we get to play 2 more matches today, assuming, of course, they would beat their next rival in the Vegas Falcons. That, of course, did not happen. But Thieves completely destroyed and, frankly, demoralized them. I mean, Ghosty was here with a 1.8, HyDra with a 1.6, Scrap with a 1.3, Envoy with like a 1.6 as well. Every map was ridiculous, to be fair, and yeah, there's not really too much to say, apart from the fact that where have Surge gone? They were in the grand finals the last couple of tournaments. They're expected to at least do something reasonable here in Dallas, and yet they've turned up on the first day and been absolutely bopped out of the tournament immediately, as we'll get to in a second. So, you know, this comes not long after Rambo was given it large on the flank about the fact that they needed more respect. Well, this is kind of what I feared, right? I didn't have Surge exactly as my flop, because I thought they'd still be okay, but, you know, having made 2 grand finals, especially with a team, look, they picked up Neptune. People are kind of comparing them a little bit to Modern Warfare 2 OpTic. They pick up a guy like Ghosty, they make a couple of back-to-back finals, then they fall off. And it's just so difficult when you're on a team that isn't called FaZe or Thieves, or teams that are just absolutely stacked with unbelievable talent, to consistently execute at that level. And I'm not massively surprised they've fallen off. I'm just surprised they've fallen off to this degree, it seems. The other series was Heretics. They took down Rocker. You know, look, with OpTic winning, the champs' hopes for anyone else are dusted. But at least, you know, Rocker could have given themselves a chance. They tried. Map 1 was an option, but then they lost it. You know, they started pretty well, up 103 to 47, but eventually Heretics get the dub, dominate the search, pretty much dominate the control as well. And that's a nice 3-0 for Heretics straight onto the Saturday for them. But the big series people were looking forward to, certainly in the first round, was OpTic versus Toronto. The rematch of what happened online recently. What could Mercules do against his former team here on LAN? I mean, the last LAN event, Mercules came top 3 with this Toronto team. That's not looking quite as likely nowadays, right? So this was a masterclass on both of the SMGs. I think the whole team deserves credit, but the player that really stood out again today was none other than Huke. And Huke is always a big talking point of any team that he's on, because in an online domain, he's always been very strong. But there's been the feeling with Huke that, okay, he's got the gunny, but does he make the right decisions? Is he going to make big mistakes in big moments and stuff like this? But lately, we have seen Huke elevate to a bit of a different level. You know, with the Mercules edition, Huke's having to do a little bit more communication, right? You listen to their comms, Huke's calling out, okay, where he's going, what he's doing. You know, he's thinking a lot. He's executing in that sense as well. And maybe that's helping him, maybe it's not. I don't know. Huke's just played pretty good COD all year and has been one of the highest KD players in the entire league all year. And yes, OpTic have had their struggles and Huke was there for some of it, not there for all of it. But now he's back and him and Shotzzy are looking incredibly strong, certainly on this game and this title. And right now they're also playing really fundamentally sound COD. And that's the impressive thing to me. So map 1, they win. Game 2, they went down 3-1, but they eventually win it as well. Huke trades out JoeDeceives, makes a great route, wins the 1v1. They lost the control. Again, it was a protocol control that OpTic aren't necessarily loving, but this map I thought was really impressive. OpTic were excellent here on this red card. The way they took over the second time of the game, and again, it was Huke really delivering lots of those performances. And OpTic outslayed by just so much in this series. It says a lot about Toronto, though, I would say, as well. Look, I call them as my flop of the tournament because it just kind of felt like since Mercules left and maybe the team felt like, well, maybe we should have kept him and all this, they haven't quite been the same force. And it is very interesting to look at the fact that, you know, both Beans and Insight, certainly as of late, haven't been very good, either of them. You know, look, back at Major 3, they showed a lot of promise, and I think it was very impressive that Mercules subbed in there and did very well. But, you know, looking at it in hindsight, it may be more of a credit to Mercules than it was to that Toronto system. We know that a couple of weeks ago they were talking about it and saying, this Mercules kid is decent, right? Sure, yeah, it's not bad, but, you know, not good enough to replace anyone on the team. Well, that could be a very, very different story right now. So OpTic get the victory. That secures them, which is pretty funny, but it does secure them their best placing of the year so far. That's a top 6 bare minimum guaranteed, which is, you know, better than the top 8s they've delivered so far. And Huke says pretty cold, GG's Toronto. So yeah, sure, Toronto not exactly playing at the level that they previously were, but it was still a good win from OpTic, and both of the hard points are very impressive. I like the search, I like what I saw from Shotzzy. And again, Mercules in the slight negative. Look, they are now playing 4v4 OpTic. I mean, for some of the season they weren't, you could very well argue. Now with Mercules in, they certainly are. But Shotzzy and Huke playing like this, you're really just not going to beat them in that case. And both Beans and Insight sitting in the 0.8s. Not a great look for that team at all, as they then drop down to the losers bracket, and we'll see how that went in a few minutes' time, of course. FaZe played Cloud9. And, well, they pretty much smoked him. They did lose the search and destroy, and the control was pretty interesting. But mostly, they didn't have too much difficulty here, FaZe taking down Cloud9. It's so interesting how this Cloud9 team online a couple of weeks ago actually looked like a serious force against FaZe. Of course, famously beating them, of course. And then, yeah, the 10 streak from Simp comes through. They eventually win the game, and as Drazah says, yeah, no real difficulty getting the victory there. So, yeah, 142, 151. Pretty impressive, right? I mean, I did mention this briefly on the pre-show stream, that FaZe, apparently their scrims, certainly their hardpoint has been making a bit of progress. That's been their main weakness lately, but they seem to maybe have slowly figured it out, and the fact that it was the control and the search that were kind of questionable, and it was the hardpoint that was very impressive, that maybe says a little bit about where this team are. But to be fair to them, it's not like it seems like this Cloud9 team are really putting up all that much of a fight. The other big series that was happening therefore in losers after Rocker's defeat was they went on to play Boston, and Boston looked pretty good for the win here, right? I mean, look at this, 1v2 from Kenny, it's 4-5 at this point to try and take it to around 11. And Kenny iced up when it mattered. He did ice up. It was pretty impressive to see this, you know, gritty search and destroy play. That was certainly a gunfight and a half. Eventually, they go on to win that map in the round 11. And despite losing the control, they bounced back in what was one of the craziest hardpoints you're ever going to see, to be honest. This is Volt, and it's, well, it was kind of disgusting because Nero had 50 here. But it was equally kind of beautiful. I mean, look at this game. It's 229, 229 with 0 on the clock. How often do you see this come up on the screen? next team to score wins, because, you know, if the game is tied and there's literally no hill time, the guys get in, the tick comes through, and that's how it goes for Minnesota Rocker, 230-229. Unbelievable map. Kenny was absolutely fuming about, like, the fact that it even got to that point, really. And then Boston were broken, and they dominated the dealership. So can you believe it? Rocker finally putting together something in their search and destroy category. But of course, at this point, pretty much too little, too late for the team. Then, though, we had the big result of the losers' side, which was Falcons somehow taking down Surge. Now, I say somehow in the sense that it was certainly not predicted that Falcons could beat either of those two teams. But they did, with Exnid even dropping 40 game 1. Priester goes 16 in 30. Surge take the game 1. But after that, things got real tasty. It was especially Pred taking over the series. And it was gritty from Falcons. They went to 5. You know, they've not done this many times this year, you know, like going all the distance and actually getting the winners. Clay says, I've been anxious all, you know, first time I've been probably anxious all year because this was an important one, it felt like, for the team. And guess what? Priester against Surge. I mean, like, Surge were meant to be potential championship Sunday team, right? Against Surge is the team that gives Priester his first LAN win since he won champs a couple of years ago. Like, how crazy is that, right? But that is where we are right now. And as Pred says, yeah, that's my org. I own those guys. We won 3-2. Dirty little Nestle. And that's what they do. They lose both of the hard points emphatically. You know, they're looking like old Falcons. But still, old Falcons that could win search and destroys and controls and actually do it all in the same series at the same time. Pred has a 1.34. But it really was just a poor showing from Surge. I mean, certainly losing both of the hard points or both of the search and destroys like that. Getting slammed 3-0 on the Hassie. I mean, yeah, Surge's control continues to be pretty woeful. 0-4 has another 0.4. Incredible stuff from Falcons. I'm happy for them getting a victory on the board. And it wasn't the only big scalp of the day, because Cloud9 were expected to potentially make a run as well, at least try something. I mean, look, they came into this weekend surely thinking they had a chance of making it to champs. Didn't play like it. They played Gentlemate and got beat 3-0. Can you believe it? Gentlemate's team finally get a win on LAN this year. FeLo has his first positive series of the entire season. Lunarz had a great search and destroy, went 13 in 3. And it's not like all of the maps are emphatic, but Cloud9, a team that was expecting and probably thinking, okay, at least we get a dub here in the losers bracket to start a potential championship charge, that has fallen shy immediately. Difficult to say where Cloud9 should go from here exactly, other than just blow it up before the World Cup, I suppose, because it's not going to be a champs. So, yeah, I guess that's the plan. It's interesting for Simp. I think especially interesting for Simp, because this series, he had an awful series, 0.75. His performance this season has been like a histogram. Like, we started at the bottom, we went to pretty damn good, and then we're back in the trenches at the end of the season. Not sure if he just gave up or like if he was just, I don't know, mentally compromised or something, because that's kind of how it felt at the end of the season there. So yeah, Cloud9 have some serious thinking to do. This series has just concluded as I'm recording this, and it's not exactly rendered quite yet because we have to counter the numbers in the search and destroy. But this was Toronto, and I thought for some time that, well, maybe Toronto could actually get knocked out till 12 here. And it was very, very much so on the cards, right? I mean, that would have been a good call for flop at the tourney if they'd have got top 12. Surge, of course, the real flop of the tournament. But still, it's been a fascinating day. Ravens, look, if they'd have played OpTic, if OpTic had lost to Toronto, how would they have done? I don't know. It's a tough one for Ravens. At the end of the day, there are some serious positives they can take here. There we go. Map 5 is just updated here, so I'll let the refresh on the map and you guys can see it. That it was a 6-5 to Toronto on the final map of the series. It's disappeared again. But you guys get the picture, right? It was an Insight 1v2. They had 4v4 bomb down over on Protocol. It was an absolute mess, honestly, and Insight clutches a 1v2 to win the entire thing. Here we go. It's uploaded. The final numbers are now officially confirmed. Slasher turns up to LAN, drops a 1.15. It's what he tends to do, but in the end, not quite good enough. Gwinn just about positive, but yeah, it was CleanX with some big moments, and again, it was just not a pretty series in the ARs, right? Like, it was CleanX and JoeDeceives really delivering most of the work here. They win both the hard points, which we know has been Ravens' big weakness. Then they go on to win the series, but it was tight. And again, like every single series that Toronto play right now is more indicative that, you know, despite the fact that I think at the time it was understandable the decision they made, in hindsight, you look at the Mercury situation, you look at the fact that both of their ARs have been struggling. And okay, yes, Insight did a big moment, right, to win the map 5 in the end. But it was, and these numbers need to be fully reflected, I'm sure. But he did, you know, he obviously clutched out when it mattered. Toronto, they were massive, massive heavy favourites. they did win, but it was far closer than even I was kind of expecting, even with Toronto's poor performance earlier in the day. The final series, which is currently ongoing still, I've got to just put this video out, or at least prepare it now so I can get to a dinner reservation. But yeah, the final series is Rocker versus Falcons. And I don't know what Nero was on today, but this guy has been on crack, because he dropped 50 earlier, he dropped 47 here as well to take down Falcons game 1, but Falcons have bounced back so far. So that series is ongoing. Very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.